Here's a problem nobody talks about enough. AI will confidently tell you something that's completely wrong, and you won't know until you've already used it and caused yourself a headache. We've spent the last several videos learning how to prompt effectively, how to customize outputs, how to break down complex tasks. You're getting better results now, but there's one more critical skill you need: knowing when those results are actually reliable. Today, we're building your quality control radar. Let's get to it. This is the core problem we're solving today. When you ask AI a question, it responds with the same authoritative tone, whether it's giving you accurate information or making something up entirely. There's no hesitation. No, I'm not sure about this part. No caveat saying this might not be right. And that's by design. Remember from video one, AI is pattern completion. It's predicting what word comes next based on patterns in its training data. It doesn't have a separate verification step where it checks, wait, is this actually true? It's just generating text that looks plausible. The result? We're psychologically wired to trust confidence. When someone speaks with authority, we tend to believe them. And AI speaks with complete authority about everything, whether it knows what it's talking about or not. That creates a dangerous mismatch between how certain AI sounds and how accurate it actually is. Let's connect this to where we are in the series. You understand from video 1 that AI works through pattern completion, not reasoning. You learn in video 10 that AI can't fact check itself, and we've been building practical skills for getting better outputs. But here's the thing. Better prompting techniques make AI more helpful, but they don't make it magically accurate. You can craft the perfect prompt and still get information that's confidently wrong, which means quality control isn't optional, it's your responsibility. The good news? The warning signs are consistent. Once you know what to look for, you can spot problems in seconds before you ever use the output. We're going to build a mental checklist you can run through quickly. 8 warning signs to watch for, then a verification framework for when you want to dig deeper. Think of this like developing pattern recognition. Right now, you might read an AI response and just have a vague sense that something feels off. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what that off feeling is pointing to, and you'll know whether it's worth paying attention to. This isn't about becoming paranoid and never trusting AI. It's about developing a practiced eye so you can catch the problems that matter while not wasting time on false alarms. All right, first warning sign, an answer that's full of hedge phrases. When AI says, generally speaking, it depends, some people say, or there are various approaches, that's a tell. Here's why this happens. When AI doesn't have strong patterns to draw from in its training data, it hedges. It's essentially saying, I'm going to sound helpful and authoritative while committing to absolutely nothing specific. The answer feels substantive because there are words on the screen. But when you actually parse what's being said, there's no concrete information. One or two hedge phrases in a response? Totally normal, especially for questions that generally have nuanced answers. But when you see 5 or 6 of these in a single paragraph, that's AI telling you it's reaching beyond what it actually knows. It's filling space with language patterns that sound informative without providing real information. Quick test. If you can replace the entire answer with "it varies" without losing any actual content, you've got a vague answer problem. Second warning sign. The answer contradicts itself. It tells you one thing in paragraph 1 and something different in paragraph 3, or the numbers don't add up, or the timeline doesn't make sense. This happens because of how AI processes text sequentially. It's predicting word by word, sentence by sentence. It doesn't have a complete plan for the response before it starts generating, which means it can set up a premise early on, then pattern complete its way into a conclusion that contradicts that premise because it's not tracking logical consistency across the whole response. When you spot this, it's a major red flag. An answer that can't stay internally consistent is unreliable by definition. And it's a sign that the model is struggling with this particular topic, which means even the parts that don't obviously contradict might be questionable. Third warning sign, and this one's subtle: suspiciously precise details that you can't verify. AI will give you exact statistics without sources, specific dates for recent events that you can't confirm, detailed quotes that aren't attributed to anyone, financial figures that are oddly round or convenient. Here's what's happening. Pattern completion doesn't just work at the word level, it works at the structure level too. If the pattern for here's a statistic usually includes a percentage with a decimal point, AI will generate a percentage with a decimal point. It looks authoritative. 73.4% of users reported improvement. Sounds more credible than most users reported improvement. But that specificity is manufactured. The model learned the pattern statistics look like this, not here are the actual facts. So it generates something that fits the pattern of what statistics look like in its training data. The test, can you verify this detail? If not, treat it as potentially invented, regardless of how confident it sounds. Fourth warning sign. The answer gives you the textbook example when you ask for a specific solution. Ask AI about handling an edge case in your particular situation, and it'll often give you the most common generic response that showed up thousands of times in its training data. It's not that the answer is wrong, it's that it's not addressing your actual question. This goes back to pattern completion. AI is optimized for statistical likelihood, not contextual appropriateness. It gives you what's most commonly the answer to questions that sound like yours, not necessarily what's actually the answer to your specific question. The fix? Look at whether the response actually addresses your constraints and context, or whether it's just the standard answer someone would give you if they didn't fully understand your situation. Fifth warning sign, circular reasoning. You ask, why does X happen? And AI responds, X happens because of X. This is tautology. It's restating your question as if it's an explanation. Why is this process slow? Gets answered with, it's slow because it takes a long time. That's not insight. That's linguistic pattern matching without actual understanding. When you see this, it means AI doesn't have a real explanation in its training data, so it's generating text that has the structure of an explanation without the substance of one. The sentence patterns match what explanations look like, but there's no actual causation or mechanism being described. Sixth warning sign. The answer validates all your assumptions and fits your situation suspiciously perfectly. This is confirmation bias amplification. AI optimizes for coherence with your prompt. If your question implies a conclusion, AI will support that conclusion. If your framing suggests a particular approach, AI will elaborate on that approach. It's like a colleague who always agrees with you. Pleasant, but not actually helpful because you need pushback and alternative perspectives to make good decisions. The issue is that language models learn patterns of when someone asks this kind of question, here's the kind of answer they're expecting. So if your question has embedded assumptions, AI will play along with those assumptions rather than challenging them. When an answer feels perfectly tailored to confirm what you already think, that's when you need to be most skeptical. Real expertise includes, yes, but here's what you're missing, and that works except when AI often skips that part. Seventh warning sign, missing conditions, exceptions, and trade offs. An expert giving you advice says this works, but you need X first, and it won't work if Y is true, and here's what you're sacrificing by doing it that way. That nuance is what makes expertise valuable. AI often gives you the advice without the nuance. It tells you what to do, but not when it doesn't apply. It recommends an approach, but doesn't explain the prerequisites. It suggests a solution without mentioning the downsides. This happens because those caveats are often implied context in expert communication. They're the everyone in this field knows stuff that doesn't always get written out explicitly. So AI's training data has the recommendations, but not always the full context around when they do and don't apply. If advice seems too straightforward, ask yourself, what conditions would make this not work? What's being assumed here? An answer without any caveats is probably missing important information. Eighth warning sign. The formatting or structure gets weird partway through the response. Sudden shifts from narrative to bullet points, sentences that trail off incomplete, format changes mid thought, repetitive phrasing where it feels like AI is circling the same idea without progressing. These are signs the generation process is struggling. Maybe it's bumping up against context limits. Maybe the topic is one where training data was sparse. Whatever the cause, structural breakdown indicates content quality issues. When you see this, don't just trust the parts that look fine. The whole response is suspect, because the breakdown is evidence that the model didn't have strong patterns to work from this particular query. Now let's talk about verification. Three-step framework for when you want to validate something before using it. First step is your gut check. Before you do anything else, ask yourself, does this align with what I already know? Would an expert in this field actually say this? Am I just hearing what I want to hear? Your existing knowledge is your first line of defense. If something contradicts what you know to be true or seems to confirm your biases a little too perfectly, pay attention to that instinct. This isn't about becoming a skeptic who trusts nothing. It's about calibrating your trust appropriately. Low stakes stuff that doesn't contradict anything you know, it's probably fine. High stakes stuff that contradicts established knowledge or confirms all your assumptions, dig deeper. Step 2 is spot checking. You don't need to verify everything, that would take forever, but you should verify some things strategically. Pick one or two concrete verifiable claims from the response, statistics, dates, specific technical details, whatever. Then do a quick search to see if those claims check out. The reason this works is that accuracy tends to cluster. If the verifiable parts are wrong, the rest is probably too. If the verifiable parts check out, you have more confidence in the broader response. Think of it like quality control in manufacturing. You don't inspect every single unit, you sample strategically, and those samples tell you whether the process is reliable. This takes maybe 30 seconds to a minute, but that small investment catches big problems before they become bigger problems. Step 3 is consistency testing. Reliable information holds up when you approach it from different angles. Unreliable AI falls apart when questioned. Three tactics. Ask the same question in different words and see if you get contradictory answers. Request an explanation of the reasoning and see if it makes sense. Look for internal contradictions within the response itself. If AI gave you one answer from one angle and a different answer from another angle, that's a clear sign the underlying information is shaky. If it can't explain its reasoning or the explanation is circular, that's another red flag. This technique builds on what we learned in video 21 about consistency. The difference here is you're not trying to get consistent outputs, you're using inconsistency as a diagnostic tool to reveal unreliability. Quick calibration. You don't need maximum verification for everything. Calibrate your effort to the stakes. High stakes, medical, legal, financial decisions, business critical information, public facing content, always verify thoroughly. The cost of getting it wrong is high, so the investment in verification is worth it. Low stakes, brainstorming, draft content you're going to heavily revise anyway, exploratory research where you're just getting orientated. You can be more relaxed. The key is being honest with yourself about which category you're in. Don't treat exploratory research like business critical decision making, and definitely don't treat business critical decision making like casual brainstorming. Match your verification rigor to the actual consequences of being wrong. These warning signs show up differently depending on what you're doing with AI, but the underlying patterns are the same. Technical answers? Watch for circular reasoning where AI restates your question without actually explaining mechanisms. Statistics and data? That's where over-specificity becomes a major problem. Invented numbers with false precision. Advice and recommendations? Hedging language is your main tell. Creative content? Generic examples that sound helpful but don't fit your actual needs. The skill is recognizing the same fundamental issues across different contexts. Vague language looks different in technical writing than in creative work, but it's the same underlying problem: AI filling space without providing substance. Here's what this becomes with practice. Automatic. Right now, these checks might feel deliberate and time consuming, but after you've spotted a few confidently wrong answers, caught a few circular reasoning examples, verified a few suspiciously specific statistics, your brain starts pattern matching on its own. You'll start seeing the warning signs instinctively. That gut feeling of something's off here becomes more precise. You'll know exactly what kind of off it is and whether it matters for your use case. This is building a skill, not learning a checklist. The checklist gets you started. The skill develops through practice. And the payoff is huge. 30 seconds of practice verification prevents hours of dealing with mistakes downstream. Your judgment combined with AI speed is what creates value. Neither one alone is sufficient. Let's be clear about the key insight here. AI can't tell you when it's wrong. It doesn't have a separate metacognitive process running that says, wait, I'm not confident about this part. Everything comes out with the same authoritative tone. which means the responsibility for catching errors is entirely on you. The warning signs appear before you use the output, but only if you're looking for them. The good news? These patterns are consistent and learnable. Vague hedging, internal contradictions, over-specificity, generic examples, circular reasoning, suspiciously perfect fit, missing caveats, structural breakdown. These show up predictably when AI is giving you unreliable information. Once you know what to look for, you transform AI from a risky tool into a reliable assistant. Not because AI gets better, but because you get better at catching its failure modes before they become your problem. This is part of our Making AI Make Sense series. We've covered the fundamentals, we've built practical prompting skills, and now we're adding quality control to your toolkit. Next video, we're tackling what to do when you've spotted a bad answer, how to debug and iterate your way to better outputs. Because finding the problem is step one, fixing it is step two. And if you're implementing AI in your business and you want help building verification systems that catch problems before they reach your customers, that's exactly what we do at Eau Claire AI. Visit eauclaireai.com to start the conversation. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.